thank you very much for staying with us as we get into our big stories for today. And we're going to be, sharing our thoughts, first of all, on the E-Levy, taking the Christian perspective to the E-Levy. What does the Christian fuel prices? We're going to be talking about the U-Tax strike. We're going to be talking about even the Ghana card and matters arising from there. Now, joining us for this conversation, Reverend Dr. Kwabena Opuni-Frimpong, and it has been a while since I've interacted with him, so it is a moment of some excitement for me to reconnect with Reverend, who joins us this morning. Rev, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining the conversation. Okay, so Rev, you would have to kindly unmute.
Hello, Ben.
Great, I can hear you now. Thank you for joining the conversation.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to meet you this morning.
Right. So I do not know, but I can hear you, but it is not so loud. So we'll try to rectify that. But once again, thank you for joining. I hope you've been well. It's been a while since we last spoke. How have you been?
God has been good, Ben, and I hope you're also doing very well.
Discussion today, and it has to do with the E-Levy. And Christian communities have been discoursing on it in recent times. Interesting development because, yes, they will tell you that sometimes the Christians communities will tell you we don't like to veer into politics too often. But in this instance, we have a matter that affects all of us, and it's the E-Levy. So even before we get into it, from your perspective, what does it mean to have an E-Levy? What is your understanding of the E-Levy and what it means to our national life at this point in time?
Viewers, already the various mobile network, when you do transaction, there is a fee that you pay. So almost all of them, MTN, Vodafone, and the others, already Ghanaians are aware that when you the networks, now the E-Levy is not different from what we have been doing with the various networks, MTN, Vodafone, the others. But this time, the fee or the levy will go to the government. So there's a component that the networks will keep as they are doing now. But now the new layer says that government must also benefit our transactions that already certain levies and fees have been paid.
Okay, so that's your quick take there. And let me just add that, of course, the gentleman I'm discoursing with, Reverend, is not just, maybe just to specify, he's Executive Director, Alliance for Christian Advocacy Africa. And also get into, my follow-up then. So we have the E-Levy, and its proponents and all of that. Just this morning, we were reading from the papers how Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta is saying that it is not regressive at all. It in fact, has very progressive components to it. Of proposing this in Parliament. We've had fighting in Parliament. We've had people, demonstrate, people do all kinds of things. Does that surprise you any? Or you think it's just the feel of what the ordinary Ghanaian is experiencing?
No, Ben, it's not very surprising. It's natural. If I have some funds, naturally, tax paying is not something that people are enthused about, all over, And so when you talk about taxes or levies, you must know that naturally, it's not a very comfortable thing that you expect everybody to clap for you. And even in this country, may not be very, very different from the beginning of VAT. But it seems to me the leaders then were able to manage it to the point that now we are paying VAT, but you don't hear much, challenges and what we are witnessing now when it and learn how we did it then and how we may do it now.
Levying or taxes, even biblically speaking, it is said, give unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar and give unto God what belongs to God. But you speak to the tax experts and they would also tell you that you must tax, yes, but tax the goose in order not to take off all of its feathers. In other words, leave it with some end. We've had, and just to break down what you've started talking about, you spoke about the service charges, which is the 1% that especially those using a specific network, MTN, would have to pay because the others don't implement that in the first place. In other jurisdictions, we have countries right here in Africa taxing the service charge. So the 1%, for example, that a telco would take, so it makes no difference to the person, let's say the person engaging in the transaction. But in this instance, we have a case where apart from the service charge, you are going to be levied. Now it has been brought down to 1.5%, as will be tabled on the floor of the example of other countries who have been there, done that, and seen that it might be better this way, not to go in this a bit of a novel way that would bring problems. Do you think
the views that you have just expressed are all over? It seems to me the challenge at the moment is the entrenched positions that the two leading political parties have taken. So other views have not been seriously, if you are with NDC, whether there are other views we can be considered or not. E-Levy is a no-no. And then if you are MPP, even if there are other considerations, if you are MPP, MP, or now even in the communities, MPP person, it's a win-win, you know. And if we go that way as a nation, we will not help ourselves because now we are forcing something on us. Either we will other alternatives that equally can be considered, considering what is happening in other countries, even other opinion that other people are expressing. At the moment, serious considerations are not being given to views, but entrenched positions are being forced. It seems to me that is the challenge we are facing.
Had to discuss all round and looking at the sort of rancor it has bred, even on the floor of Parliament. On the back of this e-levy, we've seen our parliamentarians do things that we would not have wanted to see, which has left us of the e-levy. Now, you've experienced the VAT situation in the 90s where it had to be withdrawn and brought back. In this instance, there's a bit of a similar issue because now government has, so to speak, withdrawn the bill, given ample time for the people to digest the entire concept of an e-levy. Mind you, Rev, people are complaining about dire economic times, the cost of everything is going up, fuel prices are going up, and we'll get there. But considering all of these, do you feel?
Like I said earlier on, we've seen the introduction of VAT before. At the beginning, the then government found it difficult to carry the nation along. You know, let's keep this in mind that the tax, the e-levy tax, family members or party members, everybody, every Ghanaian, whether you belong to party A, B, C, whatever. And so such a bigger tax policy, our leaders, current leaders, we are not there yet. The nation is divided. It's not only parliament that is divided along to pay or not to pay lines. The nation is divided. And the tax that our leaders, current leaders, seriously must consider is how, at the moment, can the e-levy be suspended? And then additional national conversations being held, you know, repackaged, get the nations that is NDC people who don't want to accept it and will push it on. Quickly, you realize that some people will start looking for loopholes. What can we do differently? But if we want to also go into the timing also suggests that we may need to consider suspending the e-levy, because if you are paying fuel at the moment, plus its effect on other sectors, now transport fares are being increased, and it's going to affect the price of kinky and everything, and it on and on. Our leaders must feel, they must empathize with Ghanaians, and maybe must carry the nation along. At the moment, I'm afraid the nation is divided.
The nation is divided. And I can appreciate that it is a very tricky situation, that a very slippery slope government is on, because on the one hand, you need the resources to buttress your 2022 budget to ensure that the economy remains stable, even in the midst of down ratings from different credit rating agencies, the Moody's, the Fitch, the S&Ps, and all of that. But on the other hand, you don't want to overstretch the taxpayer. And so the balancing act, that is where the problem really is coming from. But does it surprise you, Rev, that the NDC, for example, has been this vehement in its rejection of the E-Levy? How do you appreciate the stance of the opposition?
The challenge we have in this country, especially with these two political parties, is when it comes to national issues, they don't sustain objectivity. When people are in opposition, the way they come into national discourse, policy matters, when the same issues are raised, when they are in government, are changed, and sometimes they don't even apologize. That is the painful side of it. The very thing that while they are in opposition, they want to fight with every drop of their blood. They come to power and they see nothing wrong. Years ago, when we were talking about VAT, the party that is in power at the moment was in opposition. What the NDC is doing today is something that one day you want to ask yourself, even though I've heard one or two of them saying that if we come to power within the next 100 days, E-Levy will be a thing of the past. We may live to see. There are so many fuel prices. When they are in opposition, they give you comfort. When we come to power, we are not here to increase fuel. We are going to reduce. Nice song in opposition. They win power, and then the same hymn book, but they change the tune and they sing from different tune. You don't know what thing is good. Let somebody comes out to say that I am with NDC, but this thing is good. Up to this point, maybe this section may not be helpful. If somebody is MPP, they should be able to tell us that this policy is my own party, but up to this part, it's not helpful. Now, maybe this part, we don't have that in this country. E-Levy is good, but this portion cannot be helpful. Just to say no, and it is no when we come. Meanwhile, they have done such more that when they get power, you don't hear them, raising their voices the same level as they were in opposition. Confused. Is it because, and I've heard that also from the discourse, that they know that if MPP succeed in E-Levy, it will be a game changer. That is why they are fighting. I'm not sure, but I've heard that. Is that true? If truly they are thinking about Ghanaians, then there must be alternative. What are their alternatives? Let us hear that rather than we don't want it. Yes, I have heard that, the Auditor General's report present 12 billion cedis. Government, go for it. Cut expenditure. And reason with government on this, or is it opportunity that we will make you unpopular? We will frustrate you. I'm not very clear as I listen to the opposition party, but I must equally also say that MPP is not helping us, because they are also saying that it's like without E-Levy, we can't run the economy, we can't run senior high school. It's also a challenge for any policymaker. Ben.
Okay, so there's a word that as you spoke came to mind. It is a word I have coined myself, hypocrisy. Basically hypocrisy and maybe a system of government. I don't know whether that is what we have ad infinitum or continuously in our country, in the Fourth Republic, because like you mentioned, it appears some things that one party, whether the MPP or the NDC, would force in power, and now the opposition will cry wolf all throughout the tenure. But I don't think that's a problem we're going to resolve overnight. In the meantime, some of the issues you raise persist. Now, when you look at our budget, the projection for 2022, we are looking at 100.5 billion Ghana cedis. Of course, we have the different components and aid. As it stands now, though, the E-Levy is going to give us something a little less than 7 billion Ghana cedis. So the question, like you made mention of, does it mean without the E-Levy, our economy is going to fall to its knees to shore up our economy? And that also is another crucial question, which also creates the picture that then we ought to be exploring those. Because in the end, if someone tells you that the people you are governing say, we are not in favor of this, government will...
Sentiment from some MPP communicators, like if, I don't know whether they were expressing individual views or that is the real position of government, I'm not very certain. But I've heard one or two senior even members, if we don't have E-Levy, your roads will not be constructed. If we don't have E-Levy, and on and on and on. And that is also very discouraging, very, very discouraging. That have we come to a point where if we don't get funds from, the mobile money that I sent to my mother in the alternatives. And there are views from civil society groups. In fact, some Christian organizations, Ghana Pentecostal Charismatic Council, others have expressed various views. Whether government is hearing, listening, I don't know. But the more you hear that, if you don't pay E-Levy, we can give us alternative with the entrenched position that, okay, if we are not going for E-Levy, some think tanks are suggesting, what about commerce levy? There are online commerce levy, other things, and others are pushing. What about the Auditor Generals, people who are keeping Ghanaians, are also, must come to the tax net. Have we done enough? So we need to hear more from government. But for now, I'll still use your platform to plead possibility of E-Levy suspension, because whatever be the case, the government must carry the nation along.
Messages you've been sending us on social media right before we can continue with the discourse. Salisu, etc., says, the problem with Ghana is ourselves. We don't allow any leader to develop the country. Dissatisfied people all over Ghana. And in a bit of a riposte or a rebuttal, this one from Victor Dugbate says, Papa, VAT is different from Momo charges. How do I pay for the harvest of the economic spectrum? Sharing their thoughts here. Now, let's come to the hardcore politics of it. Some Christian groups have been calling on the minority, the NDC, to soften its stand. The minority has made it clear. They've been in this studio time without number. They have said they are not backing down. They are going to see this through to the very end, and that they stand on the side of the ordinary Ghanaian. Why are Christian groups?
Based organizations over the years have served as institutions of calm in this country. Normally, when we are close to elections, you hear voices. What are the churches doing when national peace, national cohesion is threatened? But it seems to me the role of the faith-based organization as an institution of calm, seriously are caring institutions, then we must journey with the nation. Our churches and our church leaders must journey with the nation. We must hear the smiles and the cry of the people. And therefore, yes, NDC. So you ask yourself, church leaders, why not continue singing praises and worship in church? But why are you involved? But why should we also leave the nation alone, struggling, the tension you earlier on mentioned? We've witnessed some in the people's celebrate, whatever, but there was bloodshed. And the indiscipline we have witnessed, yes, some of them, they have come out to apologize. But moving forward, how can church leaders just remain in the cathedral and say that now elections are over, struggle with yourself? We can't do that. And be where the people are. And that is why it seems to me that we must participate in this national conversation, not to be on the side of anybody. The church must not create platform for any political party. We should not be a convenient partner for any party.
Pardon my coming in there, but are you, very briefly, are you not tying a noose? Go down this road, people would expect that practically every topical matter, you should react to it. I mean, that would be fair, wouldn't it?
No, we must give praise where praise is due. So, for instance, if something is good, and we have had some level of stability on energy. So saying being part or journey with the nation doesn't mean every issue we will come on media platforms or we will write, communicate and all that. Some can be within our circles. That electricity, we can be part of it, but the layers may be different. Where you say certain things, how you do certain things. But if things are good, I should be able to say this is good. The same way, if some things are not working well, I should also be able to say that from our constituency, our church members, this is what we are hearing. And in that case, it's not like that we will adopt maybe.
Right. Let me take your quick take on fuel prices and maybe the general cost of living. For me, and I use myself as a practical example, between last 2 weeks and just over the weekend when it hit me on my fuel, there's the bit about the fact that currently we have about 3.6 million people in Ghana who are exposed to hunger. There are bread and butter issues in Sierra Leone, and I've had some colleagues there share their stories with me. There is regulation in Sierra Leone, a neighboring country. And here we have a system where every now and then prices change. What is your reaction to these wild fluctuations in fuel prices? And do you feel the calls on government to do something about it are?
I teach at K University, as you mentioned, and I came from Accra to Kumasi. On my way, I bought a fuel diesel at a total at 6.650.
Right.
Now, within 2 weeks, yesterday, I'm buying diesel 7.888 change. It's the same amount of money, but within 2 weeks, I have to find money to, make up the difference. And it's not only that electricity has gone up, gas has gone up, and other things will continue to go up. So this issue you've mentioned affect all of us. And we have heard our leaders that, it's the international market. This, you hear, it's not only Ghana, it's international market. But as you said, now you also have Sierra Leone going to the same international market. They don't go to different markets. You go to Angola, you go to Tanzania, you go to other African countries. We all go to the same market. Their stories some analysis. I watch one of your presenters, the amount of taxes on our fuel price. So that international market, yes, but what about the tax component on our fuel? And can our leaders do something? And here, we're campaigning that he's not coming to.
Well, a bit of a patchy network there, but once we reconnect with Dr. Opunifrimpong, we'll give him the opportunity to get through his thoughts right there. Okay, so Doc, I see you back. Just start from the top. You were talking about the president and his promises. Please go back to that.
Yes, you see, we are having a lot of what I want to call political soundbite. But I pray and hope that some of the statements, promises our president made should not remain political soundbite. It shouldn't. And we plead with him that message he gave us, that one, I'm not coming to increase fuel and I'm going to reduce. Now, this is where we have reached. And he must go back. I believe he has watched that video. Some of your network have been playing that video. And this is where sometimes we say that we are not doing the political bidding of any political parties. But we must be objective. Church leaders must be sincere. The more I listen with the crisis we are going through, and we plead with him that you go to that extent.
Okay. So from fuel prices, let's talk about something else that has struck us in recent times. And it has to do with the bit about people getting arrested, the long arms of the law reaching out to some individuals on the back of the publication of false news and all of that. So we have a number of presenters who have been affected. The Power FM presenter, we had Bobi Ansan, we've had some others also get apprehended, arrested. We've had others who are not journalists as well fall foul of the law. And we've also seen the likes of Oliver Barker-Vormawor and some of his comments, which have led to his being, well, for now, kept in custody. Do you feel, on the back of some of the sentiments we've had from last year, and I'm sure you recall Dr. Sam Jonah made mention of the fact that we were gradually creeping into a culture. It's been enforced in the past or not, we must do the right things. But where do we strike the balance? I've heard academics discourse on this, Doc, and say that if we want to go down this road, that it means every time someone does this, the same process must follow, and that it is not practical. What is your take?
You see, Ben, we have a trajectory on this subject. Right. From Rekumprebe's time, the struggle, the media space has suffered in this country. We've traveled, some distance. And so sometimes you pray and hope that the media space will not get us back to where Mr. Charles Rekum admit that if we don't address the excesses, what I call deficiencies in public discourse, our national cohesion is being threatened at the moment. National peace is being threatened. It's like people can go to the media space and anything that they want to say. But having said that, I also come back to the fact that why are we not asking them to just retract and apologize like it's been done before? Again, those who are setting up the business people now, many of these media platforms are being set up by even political parties. But if you're a business person and you set a media house, well thought through guidelines for both presenters, hosts, and guests. At the moment, sometimes, Ben, I ask myself, some of these media houses, do they have editorial boards? Do they have a guideline that guide editorial work? Because if at KNUST, and if there's an editor of a program like what you are saying, if you must have red lines, and I believe, Ben, if I cross any red line right now, you either ask me to withdraw or you issue a disclaimer that this kind of thing or software is saying it's not. And it's like they are suffering from verbal diarrhea on and on and on, and you don't get anybody in that media house, in-house, guideline that we are sorry, including sometimes even the host. Even sometimes the problem is not the guests, that the hosts themselves are saying things. You are supposed to be a moderator. Why do you talk like this? Set up media houses, they need profit, they need their money, so be it. But when it comes to editorial guidelines, they should allow media professionals to do that job for us. Else, those who are setting up media houses must know that they are hurting this country, men and women. They are quiet and they send some of these young men and women in the name of politics to do what they are doing. But they must be worried. Having in mind Rwanda, they must be worried the hurt that they are causing this dear nation of ours.
Rev, do you have your Ghana card? Have you re-registered your SIM card or cards?
Oh, General Secretary Christian Council. And we were, blessed? They brought their machines to our premises. So I may be one of the and I took a picture. They took a picture of my card. I still have it.
So at least you had the privilege of going through that, but not everyone has had such a privilege. Many of us had to follow the usual cues and all of that. The question is, though, like a lot now, the authority is telling us some 88% of those in the catchment group have actually been registered. But a lot more people have either registered and not got their cards or are yet to register. In the meantime, that same Ghana card, the preferable or the only means of transacting when you go to financial entities, the banks and all of that. How do you feel about all that? Are we rushing through a good initiative? And what is your general take on that?
Let's congratulate the NIA if we have 80%, as you mentioned. Now even they want to get closer to community stadium and other places. Recently, when we started the networks and people started complaining, queuing everywhere, and now I have been to church and almost all of them are coming to church with their staff to register Great Hall. You go to staff clubhouse. Now they are among us, so we don't have queues. Let NAI continue that line. And now going into the communities, it's not like we want to cut anybody off. We should not leave any Ghanaian behind. And sitting in their offices in our communities, NIA must now move their machine into the communities and save us into the market space and make sure we register every Ghanaian. So yes, they have not leave any Ghanaian behind. And if that means moving into their communities like now the mobile networks are doing, or they extend their deadline. But we should not leave any Ghanaian behind. Let us get every Ghanaian registered.
Of course, that digitization then leads into the digitalization. Attention to this as well. On the back of all the economic circumstances we've had and all, we have a number of groups, even within this year, yes, a lot of them through last year, but this year as well, who have embarked on industrial actions. This year, UTAG has done that, CITAG has done that. And now the latest entity on the block is fair to government. And with UTAG, for example, and here it's tricky because I know you are in there as well as a lecturer. You've been given the directive from court to go back to the classrooms, and yet your leadership is talking, Professor Nunu is talking about the fact that there are still things to be done. And
I'm on strike, sadly. I would have loved to be with my students, but I'm on strike. And I pray and hope in no time I have opportunity to teach. But for UTAG, I am not official spokesperson for UTAG, so I will leave my executives and leaders. A thing in our country must be addressed. That somebody can go to close to 40,000 cedis a month in this country. Some can go to nowhere near the teachers who are teaching them. That at the entry point, a university PhD holder cannot, is within or around 5,000 Ghana cedis. We must be worried as a country. If politics is being awarded more than are getting themselves involved in politics. Now politics has become business, and this country must be worried. And our leaders must get closer and relax the atmosphere. This UTAG and say, let's have this roadmap, because this conversation started 2012, 2013. We will pay you X amount of money. Let's have a roadmap. The next 3-4 years, we will get there. But if it's meeting upon meeting, we have been to court before. And now somebody knows also, Marshall, find our own way. It doesn't help anybody. Our students are suffering. And it's not only UTAG. On and on and on. And if we are prepared to pay the amount of money we are paying for article, whatever, holders, Ghana must address the gaps in our salary structure, because the more people hear that, it's become difficult. Go to some meetings. Beginning I hear it was something they do, security for the president. If the meeting runs 3-4 hours, you find V8 engines on. If it's president, fine. But why now ministers, deputy ministers attend programs and they are in? It's that you asked me to suffer because you are not buying a fuel. I'm suffering. But you have gone to that level of comfort that even you want, when you move from the meeting hall, you want to jump straight into a car that the temperature is at what level. It's difficult to understand when they see the lifestyle of our leaders. Let us give us example that they are also sacrificing. So Ghanaians must sacrifice, but our leaders must empty. Some jump into politics and some even not first degree or even first degree. And 1 year in politics, they are raising mansions and they are driving cars that somebody in whatever profession can stay 10 years, a car you cannot buy. Young man jump into politics and with it difficult. Our political leaders must examine their lifestyle.
To cap off the conversation, Doc, and I just want this in maybe some 30 seconds or a minute, a comment came through on Facebook in respect of the conversation. And yes, matches. Would you be willing to pay tax? Would you be willing to pay taxes on the collection, the money you get? What is your take on that?
No, churches pay tax. That's something that some people don't get.
So here's my point, Doc. I'm not talking about the other extraneous activities the church would engage in for which you pay tax. On the collection and other bits in there that ordinarily you don't pay taxes on. This individual wants to find out, would you, as a contribution to the national kitty, as we contemplate the E-Levy, would you be willing as churches to pay tax on that?
Different from the political parties. The political parties also receive donation collections from their parties. Are the political parties prepared to pay taxes on the collections, the donations, the gifts that people give to them?
Would you call on them to do that? If they did that, would you be willing?
If they answer the question that the political parties are prepared to pay taxes on the donations they get for their campaign, because that trend is not different from what we get. Our church members come to church, they give us gifts, donation. Political people get to all student associations and people give gifts or donation collection. If the political parties are prepared to pay taxes on the gifts, the monies they get to campaign, maybe we will come another. We disclose the monies they get to make for campaign. How much do they get? Are they prepared to pay taxes on it? Let them start from there, and then another time we can meet and continue the conversation.
Well, interesting note on which to cap off the conversation. Doc, thank you so much for your time this morning. Thank you for joining us, and I look forward to the next time.
You're always welcome, Ben.
Of course, and a lecturer of religions at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. He joined us for this first belt of the conversation. But moving on, we're going to talk about something we brought up then. It has to do with industrial actions. We've had a number of them back to back to back. We're going to be exploring that on the next belt of our big